Because if you sold drugs in your neighborhood, if you murdered somebody, if you did anything that caused harm to your community, you are responsible to come home and try to redress that. Try to make good on the things that you did, and also to positively impact those in your community who are going through the same thing. When I look back on my life, and I see all the opportunities that I missed, because I was a very intelligent man, blessed with a wealth of talent, but I squandered that talent on criminal pursuits. But when I came into a state of consciousness and was able to connect with persons who could nurture that, I moved forward and my entire life changed. During my incarceration, I was able to earn my associate's degree. I came home and got my BS in Human Services, and now enrolled in the master's degree program at Temple University, and I was able to begin to create a small nonprofit that could address the issue of returning citizens. When I first came home, even though I was supremely prepared for freedom, I had literally spent 16 of those last 18 years working toward freedom. Because very early in my incarceration, I took a real look at my life, and a real look at who I was as opposed to who I thought I was. Because when you're doing crime in the street, many times you say, you're doing it for your family, to make money, and for those you love. But the reality is, if you really love your family, you would never commit acts that would take you 18 years away from them. My children literally grew up in prison. My parents, my aunts, and my uncles got old while I was inside. Everyone who I loved was impacted by my incarceration. And that's the reality of mass incarceration. We imprison a certain amount of people who are physically inside the cell. But we also imprison many, many others who are part of their family, their friends, their circle, who can no longer have the interaction with them. So when I came home, I began to focus on how can we create a comprehensive system that can smoothly transition people from prison to freedom. Because it's very difficult to find a job, to find housing, and many times people are woefully unprepared for the reality of freedom. When you're inside, especially for a long stretch, the world moves on without you. And even though you think you are staying current, you aren't. When I came home in 2009, I had a cell phone for the first time. And my little grandkids really basically, taught me everything about it. And not just that, so many other things that you think you are current on, you're not, because the world is moving and you're inside. But to our credit, we worked on the basic things that we could work on. Our ethics, social responsibility, our morality, what we would do when we came home. So we are building in the Center for Returning Citizens and in the Block Party a vehicle for transition. The Center for Returning Citizens helps folks find jobs, find housing. We do counseling services. We have assistance for the children of incarcerated parents. We do a wide array of services for those who are coming home. Come to my workshop and we'll speak more about it. What the Block Party does is we are trying to form a political movement and unite every returning citizen in the city of Philadelphia, and there's more than 200,000 of us, so that we think, vote, and move in the same direction. We are going to take over the city of Philadelphia. We're going to run candidates for city council. We're going to hold politicians accountable. We're going to organize in every neighborhood in the city so that no legislator can lie to us and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and not do it. We have a Block Party platform. We're going to push this platform. And we're going to literally create a new political reality in the city of Philadelphia and then try to spread it over the entire state. You should join the Block Party. My time is up. Thank you.
Dynamite Lady is the manager of the Mayor's Office for Reintegrated rise, and she's also agreed to be an Armed Justice Board member.
Hi everyone. I just want to say it is an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to be asked to be on this panel here today. Mass incarceration is a serious problem in this country, but as a formerly incarcerated female, one of the things that I've realized is that you hear more information about the experiences of men behind the walls than women behind the walls. And I'm here today to just give a little bit of information as to some of the differences of incarceration for men versus women. Just want to state a fact. Women in American society have life experiences that differ from men's in important ways. Many of these that include sexual assault, domestic violence, poverty and discrimination hurt women's mental and physical health. But here's what happens. Women entering the correctional system represent a population at high risk for substance use disorders and mental health problems. And although a history of abuse and family-related problems are common issues among female inmates, guess what happens? Many correctional systems do not screen for childhood or adult abuse when determining possible therapeutic interventions for these women. So you have women going into prison, mental abuse, physical abuse, drug and alcohol abuse. They go in, these issues are never addressed, and then it becomes a revolving circle. Because the reason for the initial incarceration is usually related to one or all of these issues. Here's some statistics, because my time is short. I have stats that says, exposure, this was a research that was done in 2005. A study by Green, Miranda, and Ruler and Sadiq that explored exposure to trauma, mental health functioning, and treatment program needs of women in jails found that 98% of them had levels of exposure to trauma. 71% of these women also had experienced domestic violence. 36% of these women had mental disorders, and many or most of them had high rates of PTSD, substance abuse problems, and depression. These are some of the issues that women who are part of this mass incarceration, we heard the numbers earlier, face. Another major issue that I've experienced as a formerly incarcerated woman and as a prison worker that worked at the Pennsylvania Prison Society. Women are separated from their children, and it affects them more than men do. When women go to prison, they wonder why they're not responding, why they're fighting, why they're doing a lot of the stuff that they do, and it's because that nurturing that women have for bringing children into the world affects them. As a staff member of the Prison Society, it often amazed me that we sold buses to go to every prison upstate. There are like 26 and 27 prisons. And there were 2 female prisons, Muncie and Cambridge Springs. Every week, without exception, the buses to the men's prison was sold out. What happened to the buses to Muncie and Cambridge Springs? Sometimes we had to combine those buses because very few people visited the women at either Muncie or Cambridge Springs. That's a fact. So again, women and men have to, men get aunts, cousins, girlfriends. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 different girlfriends when you see one man in a particular prison. But these women, because of their caregivers, most of them being grandparents or older people, have no visits or little visits. And then this affects them in a way that men don't even understand. You ask a man, what do you want to do when you first get home? Because I work, doing rent-free, I want a house and a job. You ask a woman, what does she want when she gets home? I want to be with my children. I want to go find my children. I want to go get my children. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm just here to touch an iceberg on a situation that a lot of people are not aware of, because there are differences between the incarceration experience of a woman and a man. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to introduce Reuben Jones. Reuben Jones is a frontline dad. He's the founder, director. He is on the streets helping our youth every single day, and he is an inspiration. Thank you, Reuben. You got 5 minutes.
I'll get right to it. I'm not going to talk about accolades and personal accomplishments. I wanted to ask you guys 2 questions. Number 1, how many of you have read Michelle Alexander's book? How many of you are afraid of snakes? So let me make a correlation for you. I not only read the book, but I lived it. Served 15 years in prison for robbery, aggravated assault, in Philadelphia from 1987 to 2002. I was released in July 2002. When I look around this room, I'm amazed at the energy of my conviction, the support for this issue of mass incarceration, in fact, has on families and communities. However, there's always a but, right? The reason why it exists is, if you read Michelle Alexander's book, is because we live in a system that operates from a racist perspective. Right? Do you agree with that? You cannot have a population that comprises 10 to 12% of the overall population and represents 60% of the prison population. That either means one of 2 things. The system itself is racist and unjust, or black men are inherently criminals. I'll let you decide. John J. Collins, crime prevention, the Center for Crime Prevention, said that in any given city, about 2% of the population is responsible for about 80% of the violent crime. So in Philadelphia, that equates to about 30,000 people being responsible for the violent crime in the city. And again, I ask you, are you afraid of snakes? There's about 3,000 species of snakes in this world, but only about 300 are poisonous. And I guarantee you, if a non-poisonous snake came into this room right now, everyone would run for cover. Black males have been demonized in this country and vilified to the point of being the new 20th century boogeyman. Everyone's afraid, and to feel safe, we have to incarcerate, we have to separate ourselves from, we have to lock them away. Because there's a panic that we will be snake bitten by the poisonous snakes in the grass. And I'm here to tell you that none of it makes sense to me. That black men in general, but black men specifically, are assets to our community. I can look around this room and name at least 10. Thank you for raising your hand. There's one of them. Raise your hand. There's another one. Rob, raise your hand. There's another one. Atiba, raise your hand. Right? There's my good friend Ozzy, raise your hand. John Dye. These men are given to their communities in profound ways. If I'm missing somebody, I apologize. These men are given to their communities in profound ways. But if we believe the literature, if we believe the stereotypes, none of them have the opportunity to contribute in what we do in our society would be lesser. So I challenge you, and I challenge everyone in this room within earshot. And I hate preaching to a choir. And I understand that we're all here for the same purpose. But we have to take this message to a grander scale. We have to take this message somewhere that is going to resonate with impact. We can't continue to lobby around these issues in our silos. They cannot happen. I work, and Rob works with young men who, if we're going to give them a chance, they have to be able to define themselves as an asset. as someone who's worried. They have to be able to build their self-esteem and believe that they have a place in this world and be able to expand their worldview to see that the world embraces them. And not see prison or the corner or a jail cell or a drug ring as their only option for a future. If we take that away, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we will continue to see every dog poisonous snake as a poisonous snake. Y'all get me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. So before I let Harold Wilson have the stage here, I want to tell you that I've been writing to a man named Danny Gwynn, who's on death row in Pennsylvania since 2001. I got boxes of letters, not just from Danny, from a lot of very interesting, talented, intelligent men. Well, Danny, when I told him about this event we wanted to have, said, "Can you get in touch with Harold Wilson?" whom I had met in 2005 when he was exonerated after spending 17 years in a cell on death row in Pennsylvania for a crime he did not commit. So I already knew Harold, but I didn't know what he was doing these days. So I wrote back to Danny and said, yes, I will get in touch with Harold. It took a little time, but I am so honored that Harold has come up here from Virginia. He is sponsored by Witness to Innocence, for which we are truly grateful. And Harold will speak for Danny, but he'll also talk about his experience. So without ado, Harold.
Peace to all of you who believe in freedom. As you know, my name is Harold Wilson. I spent 17 years in Pennsylvania death row for the mistakes of others. I'm also known for spending for one of Pennsylvania's exonerees, and I'm known in the U.S. as the 122nd exonerated death row prisoner. I'm known here in Pennsylvania as the 6th exonerated, 6th person exonerated of Pennsylvania's death row. I spent a long, politically motivated appeal process under the harsh and abusive prosecutor Jack McMahon. Most of the people in Pennsylvania know him for practice of his jury selection and racial discrimination. One side was exonerated. I came out on the front line, 15th and Market Street, and asked for a moratorium on the death penalty. 17 years, you cannot walk away and say no or try to rebuild your life knowing that you left loved ones and other individuals who strive and dream for freedom and to hold their young children again. When I was sentenced to death, Jack McMahon gave me photographs of my 2 young children and told me that I'll never see them again. And you tell me, what does that have to do about justice? What does that have to do about the political motivated process as far as punishing somebody? How does that keep society safe? Who's going to raise my children? And I say that to say this, that we have to put an end to this system of injustice. We have to put an end to this system of racism that's openly practiced in the criminal justice system. I was a prison society member upon my release under Peggy Sims, I believe, and I was restricted from returning back to the PA prison system. I don't know if it was my political belief, because I stood on the front line to fight against racism as it applied to the criminal justice. The way I speak out in the public, I can't say, but I was not allowed to go back in like other free people to visit my family members on death row. 17 years, how can you tell me I can walk away and rebuild my life and leave my family behind? It's impossible. And the family that I left here on the streets practically don't know me anymore. They don't know how to come and unlock with me. Okay, my children, my daughter is grown. My daughter is just being hired to be a sheriff in Asbury, Maryland. I think it's Asbury, not Asbury, New Jersey. Somewhere in Maryland. I can't think of the name. But and my son, he retired from the Marines. He spent two terms in Iraq. You know, but I'm saying, how can I cannot identify with them? They cannot identify with me. And I can relate that feeling to a lot of other re-entry prisoners and inmates, you know, and I'm still searching for an entity. I'm still trying to be a part of my community. You know, and for all that said, I'm still trying to be exonerated and compensated for the wrongs that have been inflicted on me. You know, but I maintain a heart of forgiveness. I maintain on the front line for equal justice for all. And to speak about Daniel Gwynn. Daniel Gwynn came to SCI Green many years ago. He's now, I believe, spent 17 years on Pennsylvania death row as Anderson. Daniel Gwynn went in as a homeless person. He was accused of setting a fire here on, I believe it was somewhere on 30th or 29th of Chestnut Street many years ago. And the Commonwealth used homeless people to testify against him. And a dog that was supposed to sniff out chemicals, you know, agents that claimed to be used in the fire. You know, and like you said, Danny was very talented and continues to fight for his freedom. And he asked, all we need is the people, the taxpayers, to be able to open up their minds and their hearts and tell them, the people, the legislators, and all those who run this state, to have a say-so in the broken system, to say death row no more. All of us who believe in freedom need to speak up. I don't have really a lot of time, but I was exonerated based on DNA evidence. A lot of cases did not allow that type of testing. And we strive hard so, you know, so we can bring these issues forward. We ask for abolition, we ask for moratorium on the death penalty so we can look into many cases throughout the city. And we hope that you will write to your legislators, Twitter, and all this other good stuff we got out here in this modern day society. I don't Twitter, I don't tweet, and I don't do Facebook. But a lot of us do, especially the young generation. So if you could just give a hand out with that, you know, just write to your legislators and ask them to practice some heart of forgiveness and likeness. And we got forms outside the table. We got a little Daniel Gwynn's artwork. I brought a little bit with me. And we have some DVDs featuring my story from Democracy Now! For donations, and also it features the notorious Jack McMahon giving his lecture to his young district attorneys on how to hate in the criminal justice system when you try capital defendants. So feel free to browse around. Again, I thank you all. I thank Mary. I thank the Ethical Society. I thank Witness and Innocence. I thank Brother Susan Graham, death row survivors here to support me and promote strong movement for criminal justice reform. Peace and blessings. I hope I see you in my
I reinforce a couple things. So in Pennsylvania, there is no compensation for a man who spent 17 years on death row. We're talking about criminal justice reform. Well, that's something that needs to be reformed, and that's something we can do. We have to participate. In a tiny step, we have a little jar back there that we're taking donations for Harold. If you want to throw a couple bucks in there, if you want to throw 10 cents in there, whatever you have, it's just a vote of what we can share with you. But that's what we're about, is reform. We have the papers back, the witness to innocence, to send to Seth Williams to say, put a moratorium on the death penalty in Philadelphia. We're going to have a petition against solitary confinement. We're going to have a petition against to end life without parole.
A couple of those petitions are back there already. We're going to explain more and introduce some of the groups that are here after, as we begin our reception, which will be about 5 o'clock, so you'll hear more about those groups then. But we need to move things along because it's a wonderful thing to get oversubscribed. We have more people here than we anticipated. Thank you. Because of that, we're going to shift some of our planning. So we're going to have now the small group discussions that will go until 4 o'clock. So the faster that we can move there without trampling each other, the more time we'll have to talk with our guests today. So I'm going to tell you where to go, where the rooms are, but please remain in your seats till I've explained it all, because otherwise people won't hear. If Ethical Society members could be listening to this and